It's 10 Count Vlog!
Hello and welcome to the 10 Count Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Tiller. Wherever you are and however you're listening, thanks for making us a part of your day. We are fan and listener supported, and that means we bring this podcast to you for free every Saturday. So the best way to support us at this time is to visit 10countblog.wordpress.com. Tell all of your friends to do the same. If you've got Facebook or Twitter, we're there too. Give us a like on facebook.com/10countblog or follow us on Twitter at 10countblog. 10 Count's also now on iTunes as well as SoundCloud, so be sure to subscribe to our podcast. You can find a link to do so on this article at 10countblog.wordpress.com or on our social media and podcasts page. Help support 10 Count and keep us going. We're doing something a little bit different this week. Normally we have a guest, and we still do, but this week we're going a little more kayfabe, a little less reality. We're going to recap Tri-State Wrestling's Tag Team Warfare event now that we're a week removed and talk about what we liked, didn't like, and possible ideas for what's next. There were some excellent matches on the card, and we crowned new tag team champions. Yours truly got to do the ring announcing for that show, and, well, that went. Once I got over the nerves, I did okay, but it still wasn't pretty. We do have a couple very special guest analysts for this groundbreaking venture. One is a friend of the show and everyone's favorite clown, Johnnie Watts. The other guy is a guy who's been with 10 Count from its inception, but's always been more behind the scenes. He's better known as my brother-in-law, Mr. R.O.H. Mosier. Before we move on, we have to say thanks to R.O.H. for Snorkeling into Oblivion as the official theme for the 10 Count podcast. Be sure to check them out on Facebook and go download their latest album for free. You can click on the link on this article on our website. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoy our recap of Tag Team Warfare. All right, Johnny, Eric, how you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good.
Doing fantastic.
Glad to hear it. Now, so we're here to talk a little bit about TSW Tag Team Warfare, and I thought it was a great show. Really enjoyed the opening ceremony where we remembered Eric Marlowe and all of those who have passed in the last year or so with the 10-bell salute. I thought that was a really classy way to kick off the show.
Yeah, it definitely was.
10-bell salute is always an honor for those in passing, but to still be in the business with people that have done so much, or in just being a fan, that is just, to me, it's such a respect and a love that you can only get in a wrestling ring or around with a family like that.
Absolutely, and I think it speaks as well to the fandom of these guys who passed away. It shows how much they really loved what TSW does and what, Johnny, you guys do in the ring.
Absolutely. It's so neat to see these guys come out and, support us in something that maybe we once thought was going to be an amazing dream or a passion or a desire in our life, but some just do it as an occasional hobby or some call it a weekend warrior. It's just so awesome to even just have people to just get behind you just for that small time to say, hey, I'm here for you, I'm backing you up.
Well, it was well worth it, and I'm looking forward to all of the festivities for Night of Champions. Of course, Eric Marlowe has been announced. He'll be inducted into the TSW Hall of Fame. So we're really looking forward to that and looking forward to what else is coming. So what do you say we go ahead and get into some match commentary here? Like I said, it was a great show. A lot of twists and turns. Of course, I think the big story of the night was that we saw a title change in the tag division. And it was a great match. It was a barn burner, in my opinion. One of the best matches of the entire night. But let's just kind of start at the beginning here, and we'll go through the matches kind of just down the list, if you will. So let's start with Exodus and the Executioner and Excalibur. That was kind of a follow-up match from February, and in that match we all saw Exodus hit Excalibur with the knuckle duster. Took the dirty ending, if you will. I thought this one ended clean. At least I saw it end clean. Apparently there was some debate about that a little bit later on.
It looked like it ended pretty clean to me.
I didn't get to see a whole lot of that match, but what I did catch of it, I'm not going to lie, that Executioner guy scares me to death. He scares me right into prayer. And I just know that it's amazing that Excalibur and the Executioner, Exodus, or whatever his name is, that ugly looking scary dude with the witch lady that follows him with cobwebs. I wonder how old she is. And it's just amazing because they have, as weird as it is, they have a chemistry. Even whether they like each other or hate each other, they have an awesome chemistry. And whether that match actually ended dirty or not, it's amazing because they can really put on a show.
And moving forward with the controversy, Eric, I'm going to direct this question directly to you. What do you think this holds for the future as far as this rivalry goes? Because it's been an exciting rivalry. I'm just not sure where it goes at this point.
Well, Excalibur's probably going to be looking for a little payback on the cheap shots after the match was concluded. After he had won, it's definitely not over for either of these two.
And that's an interesting point. I'm glad you bring that up. Talk a little bit about what happened after the match and kind of where you think his head was at.
Excalibur was celebrating the win as he should have, but Exodus was not willing to accept the loss.
And I think that's a good way of putting it because he's not going to be willing to accept it, and I think it sets up another match for the future. And I don't know about you guys, but I think that'll be a really fun one to watch.
It is always pretty exciting for me to watch that because, Excalibur, he's a pretty agile dude, and with Exodus, he is such a big, muscular guy, and just to see somebody agile as Excalibur, it's almost gut-wrenching to see which way it can go because either way it can go either way. But every time that Excalibur gets in that ring, even though he may be victorious, there's always a moment where I think that guy's going to squash him like a bug because he's always got him in his grasp, and then it's like at the last minute, Excalibur slides out and gets a win.
And Exodus, he is such a domineering presence. It's like you said earlier, he scares me to prayer as well, especially when he gets in the ring and he does that blood spitting thing. I mean, it's just, he gives off this aura of terrifying and powerful, and that if you make one wrong move, he's going to take you out. And kudos to too many X's in this match, guys. Kudos to Excalibur for hanging with him like he does, because I tell you what, I enjoy watching Excalibur more than a lot of different performers, even in WWE, because as Johnny said, he is so agile and he is so good. He is so fun to watch, and I'm telling you, that standing moonsault he does is beautiful. One of my favorite moves of all time.
Actually, I am a big fan of that. Actually, it's a shooting star. It's actually not a moonsault. He does a rotating and he goes forward instead of backward, and I am always in shock of that because I've always loved that. I've always marked out for that move, and I used to do it until I started gaining weight and landing on my head, and then seeing him do it, it's so nice. I don't know how old this guy really is, but it's so nice to see kind of the torch being passed down a little bit, and every time he hits that, for me, I know it's done. Whether that guy's big or small and that he's landing on, I know that move will take care of it because that's one of my favorite moves.
Absolutely. Eric, what are your final thoughts on this match? Because, we really don't have a whole lot to talk about. It's getting interesting. It's going to be a great match to watch going forward. What are your final thoughts, Eric?
Like you said, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. It's been a great ride so far.
All right, awesome. So we'll go ahead and move on down to match 2. Like I said, we'll just go down the list of these here. And I think this match may have been one of my favorite of the entire night. I had never seen Venom wrestle. I'd seen Banshee at March's Proving Grounds. But Venom, I'd never heard of him. And for good reason. He's been gone from TSW for a couple of years now. And the match itself was phenomenal. Enjoyed watching him work. It was really cool to see somebody that I hadn't seen, but he worked at a really high level.
Yeah, Venom, he has been out for a few years, and, for somebody to walk right back into a wrestling ring for being out that long with not even really proper conditioning about getting back in, just jumping off the bike and jumping right back on it in full motion, that says a lot because that match, from what I caught of it in the fragments, was really quite flawless. I mean, the finish alone with that double stomp off the top was, you see the ceiling, it's so low, and, he lives up to the name, Venom. He's like a spider, and he was able to get around those edges. It was a good finish. That was probably the best move in that match I think I remember seeing.
Oh, I would agree. And Eric, I think the big story we take away from this is that Venom is no longer with us. Take us through what happened there. You were on the floor. You saw it.
At the end of the match, Venom won. He was speaking with Barry about the reinstatement that he had been promised, but as he had, during the match, hit the referee, it turned that into a disqualification. He lost, and as the stipulation went, he was fired.
And I think that's such a bullcrap ending for this. And I normally don't like to shoot people like this, but what was Sweet Daddy B thinking? I mean, you've got these guys who are awesome workers. You've got this dude who really, the crowd loved him. He was talking to the kids. He put on an electric match. And you let him go on a technicality like that. He hits the ref. Johnny, is this something that's very typical of Sweet Daddy?
Yeah, he's just an old creep. I've known him for 10 years, and he's never going to change. I mean, the guy's probably going to be late for his own funeral. That's how crappy he is. He's been like that with a lot of great talent in the past, and honestly, until he decides to change his ways, he's going to continue that path.
Yep, and I think he and Bareback Jack, they're just kind of running roughshod at the moment. And I get it, he's the owner of the company, but still, at what point does it break? At what point do you stop giving out these dirty deeds, no pun intended, to these guys that work so hard for this company?
In my opinion, with so many people working so hard to just establish their name in just an indie circuit as TSW, and then having, and then going so far, winning and losing and doing whatever your case is, pursuing a title, pursuing a name, pursuing your spot on the roster, and then to have somebody like, Sweet Daddy to shoot you down, before you can even climb up, and with adding insult to injury, you have Bareback to kind of back him up, which used to pretty much wrestle. And honestly, in my opinion, I'd like to see Mr. Bareback Jack wrestle at Night of Champions. He needs to get off a little of that dust. If he wants to keep running his mouth, I think he should follow what he says and cowboy up, as he's always said in the past.
So I got to ask, Johnny, is that a challenge?
Ooh. Although I know that I could take him down, cowboy hat and all, honestly, I don't know. I don't know if I got any more in the tank, because I'm starting to run a little thin, but I think I could take him.
All right. I would love to see that match. Of course, Bareback Jack is a friend of the show. He came on a couple weeks ago and did a really great interview with us, but I'll be honest with you, I would love to see you take him on, and I'd love to see him get his comeuppance for all the things that he's done, especially with what they did with ring announcer Jason Adams. That's why I had to fill in the other night. It seems like they're just doing some dirty stuff, and what they did to Venom here is absolutely proof of that. All right, Eric, what are your final thoughts on this match?
It was a great match, and unfortunately, as Johnny said, we're going to just continue to see more from Sweet Daddy B and Bareback Jack in the future until somebody steps up to put them in their place.
Well, moving on, we'll go on to match 3, and it was the tag team match between the Axis Abdul Merrick and Yusef Bey Merrick versus the Devil Dogs, Sergeant Stanley Roberts and Private Roberts. This was a great match. I enjoyed the atmosphere. It was electric for a crowd that was not necessarily responsive. When Stanley's music hit, they came to life, and this match was just phenomenal. So talk a little bit about the match itself. Eric, what were some of your thoughts?
It was a great match. It was nice to finally understand where the Axis is coming from, because for like the first 2 shows you and I went to, Jason, we thought they were supposed to be the same guy. And he just, one in the ring, one outside the ring, jumping in and out and changing places. It was a mess, and to finally have a little bit more clarity on that particular aspect of things is nice, but they really shouldn't have started messing with Sarge's son back in March.
Oh, absolutely not. And I think that when I interviewed Sarge will be on the podcast, by the way, coming up soon. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes to check that out in the very, very near future. But when I talked to Sarge for the podcast, one of the things he talked about was that he was so angry. And one of the things I have learned in my life is that you do not anger a United States Marine. Johnny, talk a little bit about what it was like in the locker room with Sarge after that happened.
He was pretty on fire, and for him, he's a real laid back guy. If anybody really knows the Sarge, he's a really laid back guy, really cool, really awesome. But one thing is for sure, he is very passionate not only about his country, but he's very passionate about his family. And you don't cross his country and you don't cross his family. And when those two did what they did, not only just stomping on the flag in retro speaking or whatever, but just stomping on his son and crushing his son with that chair and rubbing his son in the ground with all that, it really was... it was an atmosphere I wasn't comfortable being in, because even though I didn't make him upset, I know that there was going to be a reckoning coming because of such.
And give it to Private Roberts. He really stepped up in this match. I really enjoyed watching him. He has a heck of a drop kick, by the way. One of my favorite moves of the evening was he nailed him with the drop kick, dropped on his back, rolled, bounced right back up. Amazing. It was amazing the amount of work that he put in and the amount of talent that he has, and just how quickly he came along. Talk a little bit about that, Johnny, from the in-ring perspective.
The in-ring perspective, his son has actually been training. I don't think his son had, intentions of maybe running with it. He just wanted to do what Dad did. It's like take your child to work with you. To work with you one day kind of thing, and he got into it. He has, like you said, a natural talent. I think he's starting to get a passion for it, because he's just like a chip off the old block. Not only is he passionate about, the business, but I think he's also passionate about his country, thus him following his father. And he, honestly, if he continues in the boot steps of his father, I think he's going to do great things.
Absolutely. Eric, few final thoughts again. We'll come back to you for final thoughts on all of these.
It was a great match. Wasn't 100% sure what was going on when, after the Axis was defeated, they surrounded the ring and tried to take one last shot at Private Roberts, but it was very nice to see him and Sarge stand back to back and hold their own against not only the Axis, but Sweet Daddy B and Bareback Jack as well.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that attack after the match was over, I think that signifies that this rivalry is not over. I think this is something that's going to go on for at least a little while longer, maybe culminating at Night of Champions. Johnny, you and Eric both can feel free to weigh in on this. Where does this go from here? I mean, it seems like they've already been pretty awful, pretty evil to the Sarge. I mean, can they really get any worse? How well do you know the Merricks?
I don't know them very well, because they're really mysterious people. And they stay to themselves, and as far as locker room etiquette goes, they are not even in our locker room. They are completely segregated, because honestly, if they were not, I think there would be a match starting in the locker room before the show would even begun. Honestly, I can see this going on for a long while, and I only see it ending with the Sarge and his son putting these two down for good. It might take demasking them, who knows? Because usually, in the lucha style, that's the most ultimate disgrace. So maybe it's going to be a demasking that gets them out of here. Who knows?
All right, Eric, any thoughts about where this goes from this point?
It's hard telling. As you said, the Merricks have done some rather despicable things already, but it's hard to imagine them getting any worse, but let's not put anything behind any of them.
Yeah, and I shudder to think where this might be going from this point. Also wanted to give a quick shout out to Sergeant Stanley Roberts' mother. She performed like a champ, and it was really great to see his family there at the show supporting him. And so, Mrs. Roberts, thank you for being at the show, and we enjoy your support here at TSW. All right, let's move on to the next match. This is what I called the semi-main event. Will Bray and Hunter Love versus Zach Hogan and Matt Diamond. Now, I thought this was one of the best matches of the night, but I thought that, the ending was kind of crap, just to be frank with you, because that's the way it usually goes when Sweet Daddy B and Bareback Jack get involved. And I thought Zane Arkham's announcement there at the end of the match was the best part. I think that's the big story coming out of this match, is that at the next Proving Grounds in May, Zach Hogan and Will Bray will take each other on to decide the stipulation for their match at Night of Champions. Talk a little bit about that, and let's speculate a little bit on what that might be. Johnny, you probably have the most experience in TSW. What have they done in the past in this type of situation?
As far as when they set up for a stipulation for a match, that usually can go either way because, of course, me being an in-ring competitor or, that's like your chance to shine. If you get that chance to step in and say, I want this or I want that, you have that upper hand. And, honestly, I think Will Bray's got his work cut out for him, but I don't think he needs to count his chickens before they hatch because Zach Hogan is equally great, in my opinion. I think they're both awesome. I honestly don't know how it will go because it's pretty evened out as far as ability goes. So it just depends, like you said, if anybody were to get involved, Sweet Daddy or Bareback for that matter. I know they're always lurking. So maybe Will Bray might need to bring somebody with him. Who knows? To even the odds? I don't know, but it can go any way in my opinion.
And let's hope he's channeling that White Ranger when that happens. So I do have to ask this. What are some of the stipulations that have been set up in the past? I mean, me being relatively inexperienced with TSW's work, I mean, can we really set up a cage match? What type of stuff can we expect to see?
Honestly, in the 10 years of TSW, I personally have never seen a cage match. It's always been speculated and talked about, people wanting them, but I've known there to be dog collar matches. I've known there to be I Quit matches, street fights, hardcore matches, table matches, which you rarely see those anymore, just getting through a table and then it's over. But usually that's typically the road that they take anymore. Honestly, if they could pull it off, I think a cage match would be off the hook.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I would really like to see, personally, I think I think it really speaks to both of their characters and really speaks to their abilities. I would love to see an Iron Man match or maybe a 2 out of 3 falls match between Zach Hogan and Will Bray. I think those would be excellent matches, and it would give the crowd something that we really haven't seen for a while. Eric, what do you think? What would be your dream match scenario there?
I honestly like the idea of the best 2 out of 3 falls or the Iron Man match, but let's be honest, the last time Hogan and Bray were in the ring, Hogan only retained the title because Sweet Daddy B pulled Hogan's foot under the rope as Will pinned him. So the best shot I think Will has would be to bar anybody from ringside, or to, as Johnny has suggested, bring some help of his own.
I think that's a great point because, we've seen it. We can count on it from Sweet Daddy B and Bareback Jack. You know that there is going to be some kind of dirty interference. You know there's going to be something that happens to where they're going to try to stack the deck against Will. What do you think Will can do to neutralize it other than, bringing somebody with him or setting the stipulation that Sweet Daddy and Bareback Jack are barred from ringside?
I think Will can overcome it just by straight ability, playing it smart. He's been in the business a little while, so he would have to use his in-ring knowledge and become a ring general. He's going to have to know where he is in that ring at all times. Not only at where he's at, but he's going to have to know where everybody is to kind of pick and choose what he needs to do next. He needs to have his match scheduled out, like, I need to get to this point if this were to happen, or I need to be over here if this guy were to get in. I know we already talked about stipulations, but one that kind of came to my mind, and it would throw a loop to both of these guys because, in my opinion, they're not both technical wrestlers. They're more of a brawler or an agile, striking kind of a stature, which makes them both pretty equal, in my opinion. Honestly, I think throwing a curveball in it would be neat to see him do a submission match.
That would be excellent.
Because in my opinion, you wouldn't know who could come up because they would have to find a move to culminate over whoever, the opponent. And, like you said that about the maybe barring somebody from ringside even. Oh, that would be that'd be a double whammy, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's shift gears a little bit in this match, and let's talk about the other two guys that were in it, Hunter Love and Matt Diamond. Of course, Hunter Love, he was fresh off a loss to Terrence in March for the TSW Southern Championship. So he was looking to get back in the title hunt. I think he really needed the win here. Of course, he didn't get it, but I think Hunter performed well in this match. I think he's one of the more underrated performers in TSW.
Hunter Love, I think he has a bright future ahead of him. Like you said, he's very underrated, and in my opinion, he's almost like a Crash Holly. You know, he's got the ability, he's got what it takes to kind of bring it to the table, but are people overlooking him? Is his gimmick not connecting, or whatever it is, he will figure that out because he's got it. I mean, he has great ability, and I think he performed amazing. And not only that, having him tag with Will Bray was actually a pretty good combination, in my opinion.
Yeah, because absolutely, he's a little bit bigger than Will. He's got a little bit more muscular stature. He looks like a football player, and he's got plenty of time to figure all this out and learn from great guys like Will and even Zach to an extent by watching. You can always learn from watching because he's still in high school. He's going to be able to get this stuff, and he's going to run with it. I agree with you, Johnny. He's got a bright future at TSW. Eric?
Hunter Love is definitely going places.
All right. So, Hunter Love. Matt Diamond, he did phenomenal in this match. I love his move. It's almost like a code breaker by Chris Jericho. And I don't like to sit here and compare things to WWE, but he does it so well. And in my mind, he almost does it a little bit better than Jericho because Jericho always seems to get in a hurry and does it with like one knee or something. Every time I see Matt do it, it's right on the button. And I know he's a guy who's trained really hard to be where he's at. Little disappointed with his choices of who he's chosen to align himself with, but ultimately a great in-ring performer, and I think he's also another guy who's going places.
Yes, I agree. Matter of fact, just to kind of plug a little history in, Matt Diamond, you said that took a lot of work to get where he's at. He has, from the stories that I've heard, because he was not there when I originally started. But a year ago when I returned, he was, matter of fact, my match getting back in the ring. And it wasn't easy. I mean, he tried to do... Matter of fact, he went for his code breaker, and I caught him into an ankle lock, and he tapped. But, it was strictly... at that point, I was so rusty and didn't know how anything was going to go because I was out for so long, and scared me to death because, he was on his game. He was there every move, matched me move for move, and I'm not going to lie, he gave me a run for my money. And I am a big fan of him, whether he chooses the wrong friends to be around or whatever. He's got great ability, just like Hunter Love. He could go somewhere with this. He's just got to find his niche. He's got to find it, and maybe he's following Zach Hogan just to kind of, see if he can learn something. I would hope he gets a new role model, but I could see Matt Diamond going somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. And Eric, I want to direct this question at you. Johnny talked a little bit about his pairing with Zach Hogan, and I think that worked out really well. I think they complemented each other well, whereas Zach is more of a brawler. Matt is more of, he's quick. He's in there, he's agile, he knows how to beat you, not necessarily with his brawn, but with his brain. He's a great in-ring, he's a technician, is a great word for Matt Diamond. Talk a little bit about that pair-up between him and Zach and how well you thought it worked.
From what I saw on both sides, both teams were made up of individuals whose strengths made up for the weaknesses in their partners, and that was great pairing on both sides. I'd like to see Matt Diamond pick some better friends, but until he does, he's definitely another one to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. So any final thoughts on this match, guys? We're going to move on down the list. If not, what do you guys think in the future for all of these four performers? Matt and Hunter, they're both going places. Will and Zach, they both have the championship match to look forward to and the stipulations. Just a few final thoughts on this match, if you would.
I don't know about you, Eric or Jason, but in my opinion, I think, because Hunter Love had a Southern title shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he lost, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
I could honestly see him keep going for that middle title card, holding. I could see him keep going for that title because, he got that one shot, and I just don't think that's it because, like we've already came to the grips, he has the ability. He has what it takes to bring it to the table, and I don't think he's quite done with the title picture. I think, he's young, and he's still learning, but I think he's going to still keep grabbing for that. As far as Matt Diamond, I know recently he was injured in that match, actually. Mm-hmm. He had hurt his shoulder. It's actually a past injury, and I don't know what his future holds until he were to actually heal. Me being a wrestler and being hurt in the past, it's one of the hardest things to be out of the ring because you're so used to going and going and going. And I can kind of connect with Matt because and I don't count myself as a technician, but, with him having a technician-like mind, all you do when you go home, you study and you think of chain wrestling moves and how you can go into this move, into that, and to culminate over your opponent and to possibly make them tap out or wear them out so you can come out on top. And it's going to be really hard for him to sit still in this time of healing because when he's trying to heal, he's going to want to go over these things, which he does every time, I'm sure, but he's going to want to jump in the ring even quicker because he's going to find a better combination of what he can overcoming his opponent. And I fear for him because he needs to listen to what the doctors tell him. Even by Zane Arkham's example, he's injured by default. He's dealing with some things that he's following the doctor's orders to do what he needs to do to recover. And honestly, I wish the best for Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I speak for everyone when we wish Matt a quick recovery. And Matt, if you hear this, we just beg that you'll pick some better friends. All right, so let's move on down the list. The next match was the Southern Open Challenge. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Of course, Terrence cut a promo right before. Nobody had... let's put it this way. Terrence has been a dominant champion when it comes to this Southern Championship. They've put guys in front of him, and every time he puts them down. Terrence has, I think it's safe to say he's been one of the greatest Southern champions, and he joins a lot of great names. I know Zach Hogan was a Southern champion at one point. A lot of great guys who've gone on to big and better things have held this Southern Championship, and so I think it was really cool the way he just did the Open Challenge, similar to what John Cena did with the U.S. title back in WWE. But I think the biggest thing of the night was that A.J. Riley answered the call, and again, Johnny, I'm going to defer to your experience on this because I don't know AJ that well, but talk a little bit about how big of a moment that was.
For TSW, the history of AJ Riley, that is a pretty decent thing. He's been involved in the business for a few years, I do believe, and he's just like one of those personalities in wrestling that the fans just, whether they know you or they don't, sometimes they just connect and they either like you or they don't. And AJ was one that they just grabbed a hold of when he first started, I guess, kind of getting into wrestling. And when he returned, he's had an absence for probably the last 2 or 3 shows that I can remember. And with them realizing that he was there to accept that challenge, that was a big moment for the fans because they had missed his absence.
Yeah, absolutely, and I thought it was a really good match. Eric, you were down on the floor. Talk a little bit about some of the things you saw in this match.
Well, it was a lot of the same with every single title match. There was a lot of attempted interference, again, from Sweet Daddy B and Bareback Jack.
And I think that's something that, I don't know how necessarily you address this when they own the company, when they are the ones in charge, but I thought they gave Terrence a really unfair advantage. Not that Terrence really needed it, though. I think that was the biggest part of it. Terrence performed so well in this match that I feel like it was almost overkill for him to have Sweet Daddy and Bareback Jack doing his bidding at this point. What do you think, Johnny?
Yeah, Terrence is a bad dude. I wrestled him along with another guy that's actually no longer wrestling in this past year, and this was before Terrence actually got the title, and I knew whenever I locked up with him that he was dominant. I got an eye poke here and there, on him just to, kind of catch my breath, but, to me, if I had to compare him, it would almost be like wrestling-wise, he was like an Incredible Hulk. You hit him, and he got even angrier, and eventually, like in our match, he came out on top, and he's a monster. So I can only imagine whenever he was going against AJ Riley, Maybe he didn't get a few hits on him, I don't know. But just the crowd getting behind AJ would probably infuriate him to the point that he wanted to tear him apart. And just having Sweet Daddy and Bareback there, Terrence is a real laid-back, kind of a quiet guy. He probably didn't even care that they were there, but it's not going to bother him if they're bidding for him, because either way, he's going to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that it just kind of made him angrier. And I imagine he's not the type of guy you want to make angry, because his build, he's not the typical build for a wrestler. He's kind of shorter, but he's so stocky. He almost looks like a UFC fighter. I mean, he looks cut. And he's not a guy that I think I would want to get in the match with and take any stiff shots, for sure. Eric, talk a little bit about what you saw from him that really stood out.
Terrence is definitely a great wrestler. He definitely does not need Sweet Daddy B or Bareback Jack there, but here's another interesting question, just speculation here. What happens when they decide they no longer want or need him helping them, having their dominance within the company?
I don't know, that's an interesting perspective on it, and I think it's something that only they could answer, to be quite honest with you, and I don't think it's something we're going to see in the near future either. And we've sat here and we've praised Terrence because he's an excellent performer. He's an excellent worker, and it's not somebody that I think anybody should take lightly. But let's talk a little bit about AJ Riley. His work in this match was actually really good as well, and I think he gave Terrence a run for his money, and I think it went down to the wire, even with the interference. But ultimately, what do you think AJ needed, Johnny, to come out on top in this match or change the outcome?
AJ, I think, kind of came in blindsided because, even though we're both good guys to a sense, he came in blind because with him knowing Sweet Daddy B and Bareback and their tactics, I think he overthrew that just for the fact that I think he got title hungry. And whenever he knew that Terrence had it, AJ, I've noticed, has always kind of been a go-getter, and you give it to me, I'm going to go get it. And, wanting, and I think him and Terrence kind of had a little bit of a past. I don't know how much of, but I think he was just focused on that belt. And I think it really set his vision up because he forgot the fact that Bareback and Sweet Daddy were at ringside, which I think ultimately cost him.
And so here's the $1 million question I think that we should take away from this match. Who's next? What's going to happen? I mean, who do we feed to Terrence next?
Honestly, in my opinion, I do not know, because it would have to be somebody that they'd have to be ready. That no matter who they are, whether they're tall, skinny, short, fat, whatever, in shape, out of shape, they have to be ready, and they're going to have to study this guy. Because to beat something, you have to know the product. To sell something, you have to know a product. And if they're going to buy into it, they need to know what they're buying into. They need to know the ins and outs, the ups and the downs. They need to know this guy. They need to know his history. They need to know his moveset. They need to know how he walks and what drives him. They need to find his weaknesses, but also I've been taught to fight someone's strengths. If you fight the strength, it throws them off. And, we've seen his strength being, the brawling style. Maybe if someone came at him that way, I don't know. But whoever it is, all I can say is just they got to be ready.
One name that comes to mind, and I'll preface it by saying this. I think the person who challenges Terrence and successfully takes that title from him is going to have to be a little bit crazy, a little bit insane. And one name that comes to mind when I think about that is Anderson Grimm. I think that would be an excellent match, personally. Anderson Grimm versus Terrence for that TSW Southern title. And even if it were a hardcore match, much like the main event was, and we'll get to the main event a little bit later, but I think Anderson Grimm is just that crazy. What do you think, Eric?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So there we go. I think that would be a great match to see set up. I think there are a lot of other great competitors in there. Maybe they do another open challenge. I'm not sure where we go with this storyline, but I tell you what, as long as Terrence continues to be as dominant as he is, we're going to get some epic matches in this series, I think. All right, so any final thoughts from either of you guys on that? I think we covered every part of that topic. All right, so let's move on down the list. The next match was the AWA Memorial title match between Matt Quick and Benny Bray. And now, a lot of people will remember that this match was actually supposed to be Cliff Compton versus Benny Bray. And word on the street was that Benny actually paid him out of his pocket to come up and wrestle for that title. And for my money, I mentioned this in our preview last week, it either shows really big cojones on Benny's part, or it shows advanced stupidity. And the reason I say that is because, obviously Cliff Compton, he's a guy who works the indies, and he is one of those guys who's not going to be around. He's not going to be at TSW. So if you lose that title, where does it go? Does it go with him? Or do you hold it up? How does that work? So I think ultimately that was a really ballsy move on Benny Bray's part. But the truth is, I picked Benny Bray to actually win the match because they work together in Ohio Valley Wrestling. So there's a lot of great stuff, a lot of great dynamics to that match. But as we all know, Cliff Compton ended up injured and not able to perform. So we got Matt Quick versus Benny Bray. Talk a little bit about the substitution there, because I think ultimately the match ended up really well. It was a great. If you couldn't have the main chorus there, I think this was a great side dish to have.
Actually, I'm kind of glad you brought that up because a thought came in my mind. Now, not saying it's true, not saying it's false, but who's to say the injury wasn't an accident? Maybe Benny inflicted that to show that, maybe there's more to this. Maybe there could be more to this story than that's being told, I don't know. There's so many possibilities, it's like just a good, science fiction novel kind of a story, a guy's going to come in and swoop in and get this title, and miraculously, a day before or the day of, I think it was, he got injured and wasn't able to come. Coincidence or fate? But on the other front of the coin, Matt Quick, I don't know much about this young man. I think he's fairly new, and I think he tried to take the opportunity as serious as possible. I think he tried to capitalize on it. And if I honestly, I cannot blame the kid at all, because any pinfall that I could get, I would roll him up. I think it was pretty phenomenal.
And I think Matt did a great job filling in on short notice. There was obviously, he obviously was prepared for the match, because he came in and he gave Benny a run for his money. I've seen Benny a couple times now, and what sticks out to me is that Benny is a big dude. He is somebody that seems to me, he's very Brock Lesnar-esque. He's going to beat you down until you cannot go anymore, and then he's going to inflict more punishment. Benny he's a phenomenal performer. And I think Matt really gave him a run for his money. Eric, from your perspective, what did you think about that match?
Well, the last couple of matches I've seen Benny Bray in, as soon as things start looking the other way, he's out of the ring. He's ringside. He's running around chanting, trying to hype up the crowd, trying to catch his breath, or trying to sucker his opponent into making a mistake.
And I think that's a really good psychological tactic, because if they do make a mistake, then you pounce.
Yeah, absolutely. He's either absolutely crazy or he's very scary intelligent, and it's hard to tell which is which sometimes.
And see, I tend to lean towards the latter. I think he's very scary intelligent, which also leads us into him inviting Cliff Compton to have a match for his title. I think there's a lot of layers to Benny Bray, and I look forward to what comes and what matches I see from him from now on, because there's something big coming, I believe. Johnny, what, in your opinion, what are your thoughts on Benny and the psychological tactics that he has?
I'm actually a fan of Benny Bray. I don't talk to him much because he's one of those that want to be left alone and in his space, and we occasionally have the passing and talking, but just like Eric was talking about how he kind of stalks his prey kind of thing, the thing that pops in my mind, and this is kind of ironic, I have actually seen Benny Bray wear a king's robe before. Not so much a crown, but a king's robe. And when he was talking about, prowling for the prey, going in for the kill, playing it safe, I wonder if metaphorically he's thinking of himself as a king, like a lion of the ring, that when he goes in for that prey, because usually that's how it is. He lets his opponent get the upper hand, and he finds his niche, and he gets in there and he gets him, and he sticks him. And I honestly think that's how he got his title. If I'm not mistaken, I can't remember who he wrestled. Was his brother Will that for the title? I don't remember.
I'm actually not sure, and maybe I should have that and don't. But he actually had the title before I became a TSW regular, and so I'm not sure what the history is there. But I know that he has been a dominant champion. And he's been somebody that I've really enjoyed watching, and he does so well at his role. Benny Bray is a great champion, and I look forward to what's coming for him in the future as well.
Absolutely, he's like a lot of the younger talent. Even though Benny's been involved for some years now, he has what they call the it factor. Not many wrestlers do we say to have the it factor. He has it. Whether he uses it for good, that's up for debate, but he has it.
All right. Final thoughts from either of you on the AWA Memorial Title match?
Just another great match on a very, very excellent card.
All right. So we're going to move on to match 7, and Johnny, this one is one that's near and dear to your heart. It is the Tag Team Warfare match between the Juggernauts, Michael Madrux and Mike Blitz, both of which will be on the podcast at some point, so be sure to subscribe on iTunes to hear that interview. We also had Don the Ref and Mr. Johnny Watts. I errantly referred to them as the Moon Pies, and I probably jumped the gun on that a little bit. Oops, my bad, guys. I apologize. Don, if you're listening, I apologize for that as well. Other guys in this match, Big T and Sean Franklin, and then the 381 family, DOC and Rough Rider Roy. Now, before this match, I think the most surprising thing that happened was that Big T came out and he was almost apologetic. I mean, it was as if he had found Jesus, Johnny. So, and talk a little bit about that from your perspective.
Yeah, he actually kind of threw me off. He was coming out and he was talking, and I was like, well, he should be walking around doing cowboy stuff. And I caught that he was apologetic, that he wasn't being his true self, and he was telling everybody that his previous actions, he felt bad and everything. And it's good. I'm glad that he came to the light, because there's a lot of people that takes a lot of years to do that. And matter of fact, his partner Sean Franklin was originally known as the Don, Tony V, and he kind of turned that same page that very night. He didn't, I don't think, spoke a word, but his actions certainly spoke louder than words.
And that's a huge turn for them, because these two guys were known as some of the most violent heels that we had. I remember Michael Madrux, he posted a video to our Facebook page. It was a match between him and Tony V, or the Don, and he said it was one of the most violent nights in TSW history. So these guys, it's not like these guys are soft anyway. These guys are rough and tumble guys. And for them to turn, I don't want to say to turn face, but for them to be apologetic and feel like they've done wrong and actually want to atone for that, it speaks volumes, and interested to see where that goes. So let's go ahead and talk about the match a little bit. Of course, we know the outcome there was DOC got the pin. And Johnny, what happened there? I gotta ask, man.
Man, that was unreal. I felt like my bell got rung, because I was not expecting the end that could become. All of a sudden, Rough Rider tagged in DOC. It was me and DOC, and I had my sights set because that man was going down. We're on great terms, but as far as that match was going, I knew that was going to be to a future tag team title shot, and me and Don have been friends for a long time. Matter of fact, just to kind of nugget into the Moon Pie thing, I actually found out from the past. I've known Dawn for a while, and I know who she really is, and I've been digging and digging and digging for her to become who she really is, and she's hiding behind a mask. And soon enough, I do believe the TSW audience, family, wrestling world in general it will be revealed to them in a very short time who she truly is. I know the truth, but I can't say it without her wanting, I can't make her do something she doesn't want to do. But I tell you the truth, it is going to happen soon. I just know it's going to happen. But when me and DOC was getting ready to go at it, just to kind of nugget at it, me and Blaine Black and Patrick Taylor have had a rocky past year, matter of fact, and Patrick Taylor was actually sitting in the audience, and he stood up and he started, talking down to DOC, calling him a dirty convict and all these other obscene little things. And, it caught my attention because I was like, what is he even doing out here, Because he is technically on the injured list, and it was due to me because I jumped on his head. My butt met his head on the ground. Boom! Yes! But, it was amazing because he just kept going and going and going. And I have really bad ADHD, so of course I was looking at shiny things and listening to him talk, and all of a sudden I went black. I hit the mat and I turned over, and all of a sudden I seen just the lights above me, and DOC was standing over me offering me a hand up. And later to find out that DOC had pinned me, but the cause of the hit was Blaine Black had slid in and hit me with the rolling loaded elbow pad in the back of my head.
And dirty tactics all around, I think. And I don't know. I'm interested to see where that goes from this point, because obviously DOC will get a DOC and Rough Rider Road. They'll get a title shot against the Southern Shiners now, because Chaos Carnival are no longer the tag team champions. But I think the thing I take away from this match is that the concept of the tag team warfare match was really good. I mean, other than the finish that led to you kind of, I don't want to say it like this, but I'm going to have to because I really don't have any other words, that led to you guys getting screwed. The match itself was a really great concept. I think if I could change only one thing about it, I would like for it to be fatal four-way rules rather than tag in, tag out. I don't know, Eric, what are your thoughts on the tag team warfare match?
I thought it was an interesting match. I would have liked to have seen it go on a little longer. There were a few guys I'd have liked to have seen a little bit more from, but in the end, it was what it was, and Chaos Carnival decided that they were going to end things and try and steal the spotlight.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more, before we move on out of this match, about some of the other guys that were in the match. Michael Madrox and Mike Blitz, both great competitors, and it was the first time Michael had been back for a while. How do you guys feel that Johnny, you have firsthand experience with it. Tell us how he was. Was there any rust there?
With Michael Madrox, it's actually my first encounter with this guy that I've never met him, never saw him, nothing. And my Lord in heaven, that guy is tall.
Yeah, he is.
I couldn't even touch his hand. I had to stomp on his feet to bring him down to my level. As far as rust, honestly, I don't think the guy had any, because, I mean, you must be this tall to have rust, and this tall means really short. And he is actually a really good athlete. I had to do what I had to do to kind of capitalize. I mean, just to kind of go in the beginning of it, I pulled a towel out of my shorts. What people don't know won't hurt them. I wasn't going to shove that in his mouth, but the ref took it from me, and he capitalized, and I got him in the test of strength, and he walked me up the ropes, and I just jumped off the ropes and slung him over in an arm drag. And I just accidentally tripped into my kick pad and found a dirty diaper that I just happened to have there. I don't know how I got there. And I gave him a big mandible claw that the referee did not see, that I did not just say. So it was not illegal, but I did ask him afterwards, and he didn't seem very happy about it. But I asked him how it tasted. I don't remember corn being in that diaper, but there was a whole bunch of nasty stuff in that diaper.
Oh my gosh. Either way, and for those who don't know, Johnny was talking about how big Michael Madrox is. Johnny, for perspective purposes, Johnny is not a small guy. Johnny is super tall. I'm 6'1", and Johnny's probably 5 inches taller than I am. So for him to say that Michael Madrox is tall, I found myself looking up to the guy too. So absolutely crazy how well he worked. I mean, to come back and have been off for a little while and work as well as he did. He and Mike Blitz are a great team. Looking forward to seeing more from them in the future, and hoping that they'll have some really good tag feuds, I think, in the future. And then we also have to talk a little bit about, of course, we talked about Big T and Sean Franklin. Another couple guys I haven't seen a whole lot of, but I tell you what, Big T reminds me a lot of Stan Hansen. Of course, he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame this year. And one of the things that kind of worries me about his face turn is that it was just last month that he was screaming at people, and I think what kind of spurred this was he kind of realized that he was a bad guy, and it took Anderson Grimm screwing him in the Proving Grounds match last month. If you all will remember, Anderson Grimm actually took his cowbell and hit his hand, and then did a bump behind the referee's back, and that got Big T disqualified. Talk a little bit about, I know we've kind of beat this horse and we'll move on here in just a little bit, but talk a little bit about what you expect to see now that Big T has turned face, and do you think he'll continue to tag with Shawn Franklin? Do you think that they'll continue their face ways, or do you think that this is all a ploy?
I think that they're honestly going to tag for a little while because Shawn Franklin, like I said, formerly known as Tony B, and I think they have a pretty decent pass because, in other indie circuits of companies, they have been together. I've known Big T for a little while now, and I know they have a pass. So with them both evidently making a face turn, atoning for their ways, I can actually see them running with this. And, with how it ended last time, with them four being in total chaos, just going in and at each other, throwing each other through chairs and going nuts, I can see it going for a while. And honestly, I think it's more than just titles that they're wanting. I think it's each other's blood. There has to be a bigger history to this, like you said, that nobody can see. Like Michael Madrox had something going on with Shawn Franklin, formerly known as Tony B. There's obviously a past there, so there has to be a past with the other two. So it's like, you come against my family, you got us all, So I can see it going for a while.
So I look forward to the feud. Eric, any final thoughts on this match before we move on to our main event?
Just looking forward to seeing where things go from here.
All right, awesome. All right, so let's go down the list and move on. Main event time. This was a barn burner of a match, and boy, it got out of hand quick. Of course, we had the Southern Shiners, Matt Dawson and Luke Wilder. They were going to take on Blaine Black and whoever his partner was. And, of course, we found out real quick that was Anderson Grimm. And Anderson Grimm, for those who don't know a little bit of history about him, he has held the hardcore title at just about every promotion he has been involved in. He is not afraid of blood. This guy is a maniac. You talk about lunatic fringe. This is the real lunatic fringe, let me tell you. And this was it was a street fight, tag team main event for those titles. Blaine Black and Anderson Grimm versus the Southern Shiners, and boy, it got out of hand real quick. Eric, you were down on the floor. Talk about what you were seeing.
Chaos everywhere. You look in one direction for this guy hitting this guy over here, you're missing this guy way over here hitting this guy with something else. Weapons and chaos, carnage all over the place.
Yeah, it was amazing. And Johnny, from your perspective in ring, when matches get out of hand like this, where do you go? I mean, what happens?
Man, I tell you, since it was a street fight and anything went, literally, I mean, well, Anderson Grimm went straight for the weapons. I recall seeing handcuffs being pulled out, and I don't know. It's just not my style of a match. I mean, it's very foreign to me. Rather than with Anderson Grimm, he's at home in that ball field. Blaine Black is familiar with the crazy, lunatic side, but as far as the weapons go, he would. I think honestly in his mind, because I know him so well, he would rather just do it with his hands rather than with a weapon.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of got that sense because he didn't seem to be taking the street fight part of it too serious. I mean, yeah, they got down on the floor and yeah, they were double teaming and stuff like that. But when it came time to actually use weapons, one of the things I saw from Blaine was that he had a bag of candy corn. And he did a move on to that, and it seems like, yeah, he didn't take it quite as seriously as he thought he did. Of course, Anderson Grimm, he's over there bleeding from a cut on his eye, and he's got a crimson mask, and Blaine's in the ring throwing somebody on candy corn. Talk a little bit about what you saw from that, and truthfully, does that show a lack of preparation on Chaos Carnival's part?
I don't think so. I think it's just the way Blaine's mind works, because I remember having a match with him in this past year that it was a Halloween themed match, and actually glitter and candy corn were a part of that arsenal. And matter of fact, he tried to do a little slam on me on the candy corn, and it turned around just how Luke Wilder slammed him down on it. I did the same thing. So it actually bit him. So, history does repeat itself once in a while.
So, Eric, what did you think about some of the tactics? Of course, you saw Anderson Grimm, bleeding like crazy. The match seemed to go on for a while, and it was a good match, so that's not a knock on it. But, ultimately, at the end, we crowned new tag team champions. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you saw that led up to that.
One thing I was a little bit confused about was Blaine, when he came to the ring, he had his garbage bag, and in that was a little patch of candy corn that you mentioned, but also in there was a mannequin's head. I was curious as to what he had planned on doing with that.
Yeah, I was looking for a little Al Snow-esque type. Yeah, go on, Eric. I'm sorry, I didn't
interrupt. Ultimately, nothing really came of it. It was just a mannequin head in a garbage bag. And I think there was a lot more chaos going on outside the ring. It was interesting to see Sweet Daddy B trying to interfere and actually fail quite miserably this time.
Yeah, I was about to say, didn't Coach Powers get the better of him in this match? So, talk a little bit about the Southern Shiners. They have had their eyes on the gold for the last 2 months. Every show that we've been to, they've had their hands on that belt. And I called it. And by the way, Patrick Taylor, I may not be able to get ring announcing right, but I darn sure called this, sir. Anyway, they've had their hands on the gold the last 2 shows, and boy, I tell you what, it was nice to see them pick up the win and get something that they had been working for so long. Talk a little bit about that.
It was definitely a great moment. It was first title change you and I have seen since we've started going to the shows.
That's actually not true, and I don't mean to correct you right here. We
did
see
the U.S. champion was Sarge.
Yeah, we did see Sarge win it our first night, but
changed and
it
then changed
again.
Back the very next month.
So, but this is the first one that's really felt like it was going to stick. Now we all knew Sweet Daddy was going to screw Sarge. That was a given.
That was a given when he said that all of Sarge's friends were barred from ringside.
Exactly. So we knew that. We knew something like that was going to happen. But this one feels like it's going to stick around for a little while. I'd say Luke Wilder and Matt Dawson, whatever they bring to the ring with them, it gives them a little bit of extra energy, a little bit of extra pep in their step, because I don't think they're giving up those titles without a good, strong fight. What do you think, Johnny?
I am totally in agreement with that, because like with me and Don, we've been tagging for a while, and every time it seemed like every time we wrestled against the Carnival, which actually was the night that Patrick got his concussion. The Shiners was always coming out and helping us. So that told me, not that we weren't good enough to win those titles, it showed me that they had an extra drive for those belts, because not only did they care for us, but they had a vision. And you know me, I love the Bible and everything, and the Bible says without a vision the people perish. So maybe without a sense of having a drive to get this title, they may seem like they were non-existent, I guess, like they weren't purposeful in the business, in the TSW locker room, I guess, unless they had that drive, that vision, because maybe they felt like they was just sitting in the corner collecting dust, so to speak, I guess.
Well, all I know is that I really enjoyed this match. It was a barn burner, and congratulations to the Southern Shiners. I think a well-deserved title change, and hope you guys have a good long run. I know Patrick and Blaine, or the Chaos Carnival, it won't be Patrick, but they'll get a rematch at some point, but I think they hold on to it in that match. So anyway, we're coming to the end. We're way over time. We're way longer than we normally go here on 10 Count Podcast. I just want you guys to give it overall grades, A, B, C, D, or F. For me, I think this show was a solid A-. I think there were some things that could have done better. I think some things could have gone different ways that should have gone, mostly because Sweet Daddy B got involved. And I think that ultimately hurt it a little bit, but overall, a great show.
I think I'm kind of right there. I'm on that A-, B+ mark.
All right, Eric?
I was going to say B+. There's always a little bit of room for improvement, but there wasn't a lot that really needed touched up on this one.
All right. Awesome, guys. Thank you for being our analysts for this first ever kayfabe edition of the 10 Count Podcast. We look forward to doing this again in the future. Johnny, thanks for being on. It's great to have an in-ring perspective. So,
yes, sir. Thank you very much. And just for those listening, make sure you take care of your dirty diapers and you throw them away. Don't shove them in people's mouths because it's very nasty. Unless it's Michael Madrox because he likes it.
Special thanks again to Johnny and Eric for being on the show this week. Before we go, let's get to some upcoming events. Tonight, April the 30th, New Wave Pro Wrestling in Terre Haute presents New Wave Pro Wrestling Live. Bell time is at 6 p.m. Eastern Time at the New Wave Arena at 1439 Ash Street in Terre Haute. There's also a VIP experience that starts at 5:30. Tickets for that are $15 at the door. General admission is $10 at the door. May 14th, Elite Wrestling Alliance in Evansville is hosting a show at the Mack Center at 6080 Indian Mounds Road in Mount Vernon, Indiana. Advertised for this show is Xander Kelly, Matt Diamond, Johnny Richards, AJ Riley, and many more. Tickets are $10. Doors open at 6:30. Bell time is at 7. That is Central Time. May 28th, Tri-State Wrestling presents Proving Grounds at the Vincennes Eagles Club on Willow Street. Doors open at 6. Bell time is at 7 Eastern Time. Zach Hogan takes on Will Bray in a match to decide what stipulation will be put on their match at June's Night of Champions. Tickets are $5 at the door. Kids 4 and under are free. This month, all proceeds go to the family of Phyllis Miracle Hall, a relative of TSW Hall of Famer Eric Marks. Phyllis lost her battle with cancer recently. Coliseum Championship Wrestling in Evansville presents Redemption May 28th at the historic Evansville Coliseum at 300 Court Street. Tickets are $10 at the door, $5 with military ID, active or retired. Kids 5 and under are free. It all goes down 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Wednesday, June the 1st, New Focus Wrestling will be at the Evansville Coliseum. Match card features names such as Tracy Smothers, Xander Kelly, Will Bray, Zach Hogan, Cliff Compton, and many more. It all goes down at 6:30 Central Time, Wednesday, June the 1st at the historic Evansville Coliseum, 300 Court Street in Evansville. Tickets are $10. Active military and kids 5 and under are free. One bigger promotion, the post-payback WWE Monday Night Raw is live from St. Louis this Monday, May the 2nd. That goes down at the Scott Trade Center at 6:30. If you want to go see that show, check out the WWE app or your local Ticketmaster outlet. Don't forget to support all of these local promotions by liking them on Facebook or following them on Twitter. Search for them by name. I promise you'll find them. If you don't want to do that, you can check our area indie promotions page at 10countblog.wordpress.com. Also, be sure to check out our page on 10countblog.wordpress.com entitled Social Media and Podcasts. You'll find links to all of our social media pages, iTunes, and SoundCloud. And again, that's all at 10countblog.wordpress.com. If you don't want to go there, we're at facebook.com/10countblog or on Twitter at 10countblog. Give us a like or a follow and help us get to 100 likes. Thanks again to Rollick. They've got their Rollick Frolic event coming up June 25th at the Vincennes Riverfront Pavilion. Lots of great bands on that bill. Go out and support them, and remember to download their latest album by clicking on the links on this article at 10countblog.wordpress.com. Special thanks again to Johnny and Eric for being on the show this week. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and SoundCloud by searching for us on both of those platforms, or you can click the links at 10countblog.wordpress.com. Be sure and stay glued to our social media pages as well. We'll be announcing our next guest at some point this weekend, I promise. It's going to be a fun one. Until then, thanks for listening to the 10 Count Podcast.